Mhm. Let's get a few guys on here. Yes, sir. The man of the hour is here, and the man who introduced the man of the hour is here. Look at that. Beautiful. I'm going to give about 30 seconds to see if we get a couple guys in here. I'm going to get spotlights going, and then we will rock and roll. Look at this. Watch this. Watch this magic trick. So automatically, that guy looks handsome, and then you go like this, and you add an uglier human next to him. He looks even better. There it is. That is the magic trick, magic of video right there. Let's get rocking and rolling. Tom, how are you, sir?
Great to meet you. Very well. How are you, Matt?
Doing very well. Good to meet you. Uh, is it Tuesday over there?
It is Tuesday, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a day ahead of you.
Okay. Australia just throws me for a loop, man. But I'm glad we got it. I'm glad we got it figured out, man. Thanks for taking the time to
Yeah,
come and hang out with us, man.
absolutely. Thanks for having us. And thanks, Eric, for the introduction. It's good to see you again.
Big thanks to Eric Drake for the introduction. He is Eric. You have never steered me wrong, and I started looking into Tom and looking at all his stuff, and I just went, "Oh, Eric did it again."
Yep, it's a good match made in heaven here. It's good to see you, Tom. I'm actually over in London, so it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm
Wow.
doing a blockchain conference, the London
Okay.
Blockchain Conference, and we're also doing a tour of the monetary systems of the world from the Knights Templar forward. So.
Wow.
Went to the Bank of England earlier today and the White Castle and yeah. Tom, you probably know Elle Liberté by chance. She was at Anarchapulco and Confluence this
Yes.
last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's kind of leading the charge. So uh, very cool stuff.
That's
More to
great.
come, but I'm glad to see you both.
Yeah, man. Thank you for that. And that's awesome. I wish I had gotten to meet you at Anarchapulco too. I was not able to make it down there, but yeah, it sounds like we're running a lot of the same circles. So I want to dive into you, man. If you're okay with it, I want to dive into some of the stuff that I've been checking out that you've been doing, and we got some of our men from around the world here with us, and they might come in for a little Q&A too. But super easy hour, man. I just want to talk about all the things that sounds like we very much align on so much. Been diving into a lot of your stuff on natural law, and I love the way that you frame it. I think you articulate things very well, and we've got our men here, and this will go out as a podcast as well. So, with all these men building legacies and families and businesses, maybe we start there with your definition of natural law and in kind of everyday leadership terms, and we'll see where we go.
Absolutely. First of all, again, thanks for having us and appreciate the time with you guys.
Mm.
It's actually a pleasure of mine to be able to speak with men that are on that same path as well. I do think that we will have a lot of carryovers. I didn't know how much your group of men would actually know about natural law and how, whether it's a new concept or not. So any questions that come through, I'm open for anything and any which way it goes. So to start with my definition of it, which is only mine, but it's simply this: it's nature's way. It's the natural cause and effect of life. So in really simple terms, if we fill ourselves with junk, be it junk food, junk content that we're consuming, we have junk friends around us, junk influences in our life, such as familial patterns and whatever programs that are holding us back. That's going to be the expression that we have into the world, and that's going to uh, essentially mean that's the results that we're going to get. We're going to get junk results. And that might seem overly simplistic, but what it means is that if that's the case, we're the creator of that, we're the prime creator. So although we might have negative outcomes in our lives, it's not because of the influences, it's not their fault. It's not because of our family or our parents or where we grew up. Like, we're not a victim. That's one of the primary fundamentals of natural law of cause and effect, is that we are causing the effect.
Mm.
So if that's the case, then we just need to go, okay, well, if I'm creating that, then I can create it differently because I'm a prime creator. I create in the image of my creator, and therefore I can change that. I'm not a victim. I'm actually in the driver's seat. So therefore, I can change what I put in. I can change my diet. I can change what I consume daily from social media or my phone. I can change the friend circles that I'm in and the people are they also wanting to create a legacy for their life and their family, or are they a bit lazy and they're not really into that? They're blaming, they're outsourcing, and they're doing everything other than being in the driver's seat of their own life. So we can change that, and therefore we'll change the expression of our life as a result. That's this really simplistic way of looking at it. Of course, it parlays into our rights in society and why we don't have to be pushed around or told what to do. It parlays into our personal relationships with our wives and our families, our monetary relationships in our business. It all comes under natural law principles. So, like I said, whatever you guys want to talk about in relation to that, we'll go for it.
I love it, man. You're saying all the things that we talk about. So we'll use the word sovereignty and describe much of the same. We'll talk about factory settings, which is very similar to what you're describing as your definition of natural law. And you mentioned a couple times that it's a simplistic, you said simplistic view, but I think that is the mark of something that is closer to a truth is when it is simple. And then a lot of times we're trying to give people a framework to be able to just see what's right in front of their face, right? And we're trying to get right back to that simple framework. So I'm right there with you. On your site, you had something along the lines of what you were just talking about, saying becoming the main character in your life, right? Author your own story, become the authority, become the standard of you. I mean, that's it. It's very much our ethos. So for you personally, did you grow up with that understanding and mentality, or was that something that, a series of events, life circumstances, you diving into X, Y, and Z? What brought you to that frame of mind where you went, wait a second, I am the authority? Or did you always consider yourself the authority for yourself?
No, I was always very rebellious because I knew that nobody could tell me what to do, but I wasn't the authority. I did grow up in kind of a victim state. I ended up with chronic fatigue syndrome. I was an athlete that I had to drop out. I was supposed to come to America to compete. I was going to be quite successful. I planned to be quite successful in that way. But in my early 20s, I had chronic fatigue. I got really sick for a long time, and I kept blaming. And then I was blaming the government, and then I was blaming every reason that society is set up for me to fail instead of really realizing that I was just failing all on my own. So even though I was academically very bright, so I could explain things and I thought that that made me smart, but it wasn't. It was like an academic smart, how I kind of got a lot of validation, which isn't real value, like validation based on other people's kind of program or other people's idea of what it means to be successful or intelligent or in any way right as a man was all, I call it outsourcing as opposed to insourcing, because it really should be inside of us, right? So I was making all the mistakes, Matt. That's basically my answer to that is no, I didn't grow up in a good environment or good influences like that. In my early 20s, though, I did start to get into personal development and started reading a lot of books that helped me figure out more that I didn't have to kind of fit the system, that it
Yeah.
was okay to do things outside of it. Not only was it okay, but everybody that was really hyper successful was literally not part of the schooling, tertiary education, get a job 9 to 5, pay your taxes, retire. Like all the successful guys weren't doing that. They all either didn't go to school, dropped out of college, became entrepreneurial. And so that actually was a very big turning point for me because up until then, even though I knew it wasn't right, everything around me was telling me I had to fit the system. I had to get this degree. I had to, like play it safe. And so those books were pivotal for me though as well.
What were some of those books? I like your framing on that too, the outsourcing versus insourcing. I don't think I've ever heard anybody else say that. And I very much resonate with that. Who were some of the people you started reading that started making that mental transition for you?
In the beginning, it was like a lot of people, Anthony Robbins and guys like that.
Sure.
Names off the top of my head, I can't really pick a lot of them, but there were heaps in those sorts of circles. Zig Ziglar and
Sure. Some of the OGs.
uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of those guys. Which was really good. And then The Magic of Thinking Big was one of the books that I read multiple times because I
Mhm.
just had to get my mind. I was always a dreamer. I was always like an optimist, but I had a lot of ingrained poverty mindset in me
Yeah.
and lack of self-worth. So I really read that book a lot of times. And then How to Win Friends and Influence People. I was in sales at the time as well, so that was really important that I learned how to read people and how to communicate more effectively and not try to get everything, especially being in sales. A lot of people They like, okay, I'm on commission only. I've got to get. And as soon as you have that mentality, it's like you're not getting your sales because it's just people can smell it. It's not really how sales work. So
Yeah.
it really got me into having to figure out how to make it myself in the world instead of the institutions that I thought were going to be my support base and before I
Right.
got sick, you know? So yeah.
The institutional leaning into those for the illusion of security that they give is one of the most difficult things to get people out of the mindset of. And in my experience, and I wonder if it's the same for you, the majority of people will stay within the confines of the quote unquote normal because it is the familiar thing. And so we confuse familiarity with truth. So the majority will stay there. You have a select few that will go, wait a second, I don't have to play this game. I don't have to buy into this illusion, and I'm going to step outside of it. And then you also have another subset that go, I'm stepping outside, and dear God, I want to bring some other people along with me. Right? You kind of have those different stages. So what were some of the biggest illusions for you, or the systems that you were tied to the most that were the hardest for you to break? And that's kind of the first part. And then why do you speak to try to help so many other people get out of this too? Because that's another thing. There's a bravery to get in, to get out of that. Then there's a whole different kind of animal of trying to bring some other folks along.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's an awesome question. So this is where I've made mistakes in the past though, Matt, is I've gone like I've done this so it's easy
Yeah.
or like everyone else should do the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
look, because in all honesty, it was easy for me. And the reason that it was easy is because I uh from an early age, I was questioning a lot of things, even though I was firmly in the mind virus that I was in, I was still questioning a lot. Like I would question the educational system that I was in, even though I was doing well. I would question why my parents were telling me certain things because I could smell that there was something like off with it. And same with my friends' parents, just society in general. I was slightly autistic, so it's kind of like natural for people like me to just already think differently and kind
Yeah.
of have a bit of a non-filter that other people have. But so I can't really say, emulate what I did because it's just I see it's much different for other people and they're more closely tied to their family. They're more closely tied to their community. It is a lot harder. I will acknowledge that it's harder. But at the end of the day, it's not like it's still just a decision. That's my answer is that it's just you've got to realize that there's a certain way for just the collective, the majority, and then there's another way for those that want to really be who they are. So at some point or another, you just got to decide it's like it's one or the other. It actually can't be both. It doesn't mean you can't maintain relationships. It doesn't mean you can't have empathy and compassion. It doesn't mean you can't help, but you can only help others if that's what you want to do to the degree that you're able to individuate from that collective. You can't actually be in that collective and still have that mind virus, still have those same beliefs, still be run by the same illusion of safety and security and value and all of that you get from it
Yeah.
and influence it and affect it in a positive way. You have to individuate from it in order to help it. You can't be in it and help it. It's just they don't go together. In my experience, anyway, I should say. So for
Yeah.
me though, it was kind of a natural progression. I was already ostracizing myself or being ostracized along the way from a child, not just as an adult. But then to help others, it's to answer that part of the question, it's being very solid in that path of individuation where you actually know that it's your soul path. Like it's a different path from the illusion. And there's nothing wrong with the illusion if people want to stay in it because they're scared and all that, like belittling them, mocking them, telling them they're wrong. You're an idiot if you can't see this happening in the world. Like that's not the way that's actually going to help people because at the end of the day, they are in a fear paradigm,
Right.
and just putting them down for it isn't going to help them. Like we've probably all done it. I know I'm guilty of doing that. That's why I know it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
When they see you crushing on your own and you're not scared, that's what helps when they are like, but why aren't you scared of this? Or but what if that happens? But what if the financial system does that? Or what if there's, what if you can't go to the doctors and what? It's like, yeah, it's cool. I got it. It's all right. You don't have to tell them they're wrong. You don't have to go, why would you believe in the medical system? Why would you believe in the government? Like, you don't have to mock it. I made that mistake as a like an early teen.
Yeah.
And but like as I started doing better and people could just see that I was okay, even when they question me, I was like, no, it's all right, I got this. And they'd be like, oh, okay, well, maybe, maybe there's another way.
Yeah, maybe I can do that too. And good for you for making that mistake just up through the early teens. I was definitely in my 30s, maybe early 40s too. So before I started realizing, okay, that's not going to be the way that brings other people over. Um, no, you lay that out really well. One of the themes you talk about, and is that kind of what you're alluding to? You talk about self mastery, and is that this trajectory as you kind of laid it out right there for you, getting out of all these systems and setting up your own self-governing boundaries for that? Is that your version of self mastery? Is that how you define it?
That's one definition for sure. Yeah, it's I mean it goes deeper than that. Well, most of what that's when I talk about that side of things, it's all on that internal level between
Yeah.
you and whatever you perceive your creator to be. It's a God, your creator, it's life, it's whatever you perceive that to be. That's the level of mastery that you're working with, that kind of which is very personal. So how you experience that is different from how somebody else on their true path may experience that. I don't believe it's like this collective thing. Everyone will do the same thing and they'll reach the same end result.
Right.
But as far as just like daily things, yeah, absolutely, Matt. That's how I would describe it. It's like, do you have mastery over your habits? Do you have mastery over just the very, very basic things in life that a lot of people still like to outsource for? They're always waiting for the next guy to tell them what to do, or I like, this guy looks fitter than that guy, so he must be right. And then I'll just change what I'm doing, even if it feels right to me, based on he's got more followers or he's got more influence or something like that. That's the opposite of mastery because it's constantly outsourcing. But it's interesting because we should still allow ourselves and humble ourselves to the point where we're not like, I don't know everything. So if
Right.
new information comes along that feels right and somebody is successful and success leaves clues, then I'm open to new information, but I'm not going to just give all my power away and allow myself to be like bounced around because we don't have
Right.
any mastery then.
That's such a man. It is that it presents this interesting I don't know if paradox is maybe, but we talk about one of the words that gets used quite a bit, but I think it's lived relatively rarely is the concept of being authentic, right? And a lot of what you're talking about here is authenticity, truly. And it's again, it's a word that's used quite a bit, but I don't believe it's actually I don't see it being lived. And if authenticity means being true to yourself as somebody currently is, then some people get stuck going, okay, well, any sort of self-improvement, any sort of path where I am shifting my identity forward can seem inauthentic, right, to me, because it implies that I'm acting against my current impulses and my current habits and my current tendencies. But I think that definition is pretty static, and it assumes that the current self is like the real you, and that any attempt to go forward is some sort of form of like self-betrayal, right? And I don't think that's how people like the great thinkers would define authenticity. I think it is being true to who you could be, right? Like I think that's it. How do you view that concept of authenticity and how it's kind of thrown about now versus what you're talking about here in this concept of self-mastery?
Well, who you could be, I like that, by the way. I agree. I think who you could be does require humility because you're not there yet. Like you're not at the stage where you know everything. You're above, learning or above being able to take advice from somebody who is like a bit below you. Like, a purple belt in jiu-jitsu might learn something off of a blue or a white belt just
Yeah.
because he hasn't considered it that way before.
Right.
Like you're not above everything, but you also recognize where you're at and where you can be. That's like the humility of being a human being. The thing with authenticity that I think gets a bit inverted is people just think it's just being unfiltered. But the problem with that is that often by being like authentic, if I just want to say whatever about whoever and however I like, that's more of just an unfiltered shadow expression, which isn't necessarily healthy or right. I don't think that that's authentic because that's not who or what you really are.
Yeah.
And that's why I like what you said, Matt, because it's like, who am I actually becoming?
Yeah.
What am I really at my core? Because most of it, I won't say none, because I'm sure it's there. But in my experience, especially for me and a lot of the guys I grew up around, no one was who they were. It was all programs. It's like, this is what it means to be tough. This is what it means to be right. This is what it means to be a man. This is what it means to be successful. This is how you treat women. This is the shit you don't take. This is everything. And it's all programs. None of it's real. So therefore, it's not who we really are, how we act and behave, how we speak, how we react to things, which is all programs. So that's not who we are. So it is like, okay, I am who I am. I'm doing the best that I can, but this is who I'm becoming. I know that I can reach, this, even if I don't know exactly, this is my next step as a man, which takes humility, and that's more authentic to me.
That's so good, man. And that it's, this is something I've been noodling on quite a bit lately. So I think it's um, almost serendipitous that we get to that, I get the opportunity to speak now. The Adlerian view, Alfred Adler, would say you're always moving. You're moving either towards superiority of, like growth or contribution or mastery, or toward inferiority, where you're like moving towards an avoidance or a stagnation. And he says when you're building a new habit, you're reorienting your movement. That's not inauthentic, it's directional. And he warned against exactly what you were saying right there, where people excuse themselves of self-consistency. And it's the idea of, well, this is just who I am, right? And it's such a trap of false authenticity. So I love the way you outline that. You have been through a lot of transitions yourself. So at least from what I can find, health practitioner, and you've done some speaking and, teaching on natural law. What are some of these identity shifts for you? What are some of the hardest ones you've had to make? And do you still feel like you learn something new as you lead yourself through those?
Always. Yeah,
Yeah.
I consider myself a perpetual student, because one of the things that I've always loved to do, and I think why I was good at academics, is I do love to learn.
Yeah.
So even as I'm 45 now, like I still love learning. Like anything I can learn, I'm all over it. And sometimes I'll even spend too much time on YouTube because I come across like a topic or something technical that I'm just like, oh God, I gotta know more about this. And then I'll find some guys around that also, and I'm like, I love learning. Like one of my favorite things is to be a beginner again at something, because there's a like an excitement about being a beginner and having all of this potential to learn and grow into something new. So there is a trap in that though, because you've probably seen it too. Like, I mean, I used to know people that were in college for like 20 to 30 years that would get one degree after another. And like, dude, when are you gonna like live life?
Yeah.
When you,
Yeah.
when are you actually gonna do something with that and create something and be of value? Because you're just perpetually studying. It's like this avoidance of life, and having a propensity to love to learn can be a trap, because you just want to learn the next thing and the next thing. It's like, but you got to try to master at least one thing. Like,
Yeah.
where can you plant your flag in the ground? Just go, I'm actually like, if you really want to know something, like I can confidently say I can help you with this. And
Yeah.
just, you don't have to over explain, you don't have to convince anyone. It's just like, no, if you want to know about this, like I got you.
Yep.
As opposed to like I can give you tidbits of 100 different topics kind of thing. So I think a healthy curiosity is good, but you do also have to then have the discipline to want to stick at something for at least a specified amount of time to reach a certain level of mastery of that, especially as a man. I think it's important.
Very much so. So that leads right into where I wanted to go with that too. So when for a man, and we have men on this call, and men that are juggling, being a dad, being a husband, being a professional, wanting to grow, do you look at that and go, we got to master, can you, do you look at that and go, you can master those individual areas when it comes to like the relationship side too? Or do you think some of those can't be mastered? Do you think we master those one at a time simultaneously? How do you look at that from, like combining the personal and the professional in there?
Yeah, I look at it as a case by case basis, because the thing is too, we're all really different. So one way I think that people can make a better run of their own life is just to like know more a bit about who they are in general, and how do you function? Like, how are you built as a man? Because we're actually all built quite differently. We have different constitutions and therefore different strengths and weaknesses. And without getting too far into you know, what people might consider just too out there or whatever, even a little bit about your own astrology or your human design, or like there's plenty of these modalities out there. Gene keys is another one. I wouldn't rely on them for anything, but they can give you a little bit of an idea about how you actually function.
Yeah.
Because some people are inherently more grounded, more hands-on in life, and other people are a bit more etheric, a bit more mind oriented and whatever. So how we master things is different from man to man. And knowing who you are and knowing a bit more about your own constitution and how you function will really help with that. Because otherwise, you're trying to like do it this way, but your blueprint is opposite, and you're just going to think you're a failure because like I can't do two tasks at once. Yet you're reading
Yeah.
a book that says master two things at once. It's easy, and you're like, fuck, like, I suck. You know, you really go into a spiral where you're
Yeah.
not built like that. So find out how you're built and work with your strengths and then try to master your weaknesses as you go. I do think though that as you were giving those examples, Matt, I think you can master everything, and one of the ways you can do that is by really being present. What I mean by that is you can be a student of something, which kind of gives you less responsibility. So if you're an apprentice or a student, you're like, yeah, you know, I can just kind of like half-ass it, or I could screw up. It doesn't really matter. But if you consider yourself to be like the CEO or the CFO of this task, you don't have that same leeway. So you're actually much more invested personally into the experience. So it might be how you're interacting with your children or your wife. It might
Yeah.
be how you're doing business. It might be how you're running a household or leading a household. And if you take it seriously, then you are actually invested in it. You're going to actually perform better. And
Yeah.
you can achieve mastery in many different elements of life just by having that approach to it and wanting to do that, as opposed to having the sit back approach, which is like, well, you know, like this isn't my profession, so I don't have to succeed.
Yeah, I love that, man. And that's as you're talking about that, I look at the balance of how especially relationships here, it's very, we run our household very much like a business, but we have so much fun doing that. And there is this inherent curiosity for everybody too. I love the way you frame the self-mastery and figuring out, okay, well, how do I operate and how do I communicate best? What do I do well? What do I not do well? And then taking a look at my wife, taking a look at each one of my kids, and being extraordinarily curious about them to see, well, how do they operate too? Because if I know how I operate and I can figure out how she operates, and then in a situation I can go, okay, well, what is the shortest, distance between the two of us here? And that helps so much. But it's a lot of thinking, and it's a lot of um, functioning in a way that you're not reacting. And again, going back to everything we're talking about from the very beginning, it's being proactive about all this and owning your existence. um Gentlemen, and I've got, this is, I don't do spirit animals, but Tom is speaking very much like a spirit animal here, so I feel like I could talk to him for hours. So if you guys start having questions that come up, man, put them up. But there is something I remember you wrote or said that I wanted to unpack too. The concept of the offer versus the have to, right? And can you unpack that for us? How do those two modes show up, and why does shifting into the offer matter?
All right, this is the one of the fundamentals of natural law is that everything is an offer, which means that if everything's an offer, I have say. And if you take that to be like a commercial offer, as in, hey Matt, you know, I can perform this service for you. It's this amount of money, and then this will be the outcome that I'll be able to deliver. It's an offer because you can negotiate that. You can say yes, you can say no, you could counter offer, you could whatever. There's a number of different ways you could handle that, right? So if you start seeing everything as an offer, then you understand that life tends to follow the same pattern, which is there is an offer. There's how I respond to the offer. And no matter how I respond to it, it doesn't matter. I could do nothing, be silent. I could argue. I could say yes. I could say no. I could counter offer, whatever. Either way, there is an agreement that's formed. So you got offer, how we handle the offer, and then an agreement.
Mm,
So life tends to operate via agreements and contracts.
mm,
And that's why if you actually read any of the old texts like the Tao Te Ching, the Bible, like anything like that, you'll find when you decode it, it's all to do with contracts and offers and agreements, which is where natural law essentially has its basis. So when we're talking about have to, we often, I think, impose that on ourselves as a limitation. So one of the examples I like to give is a lot of guys, they might be in the position of knowing that, all right, I kind of got myself into a situation that I feel a bit disempowered with. I don't like how the world is, and I want to change it. I want to start being the change. And a lot of that begins with me and what I do. And I don't like what I'm doing. I don't particularly enjoy let's say I'm in a job and I don't like my boss. I don't like what I'm in. I want to be my own boss. I want to start a business or something like that. And we can always quite easily fall into the story of I have to go to work today.
Yeah.
So if you have to go to work today, you're bound by a prison of have to. And it could be anything. I have to do this. I have to dress this way. I have to. But when you can start to, first of all, ask the question, do I have to? If you're able to open your mind to possibilities, you'll realize you don't actually have to do anything, including go to work, including do anything. Now, there are consequences to doing and not doing, but at the end of the day, you don't have to. So when you can remove have to, you remove the prison, you start to be more open to solutions, creative, and also being able to think critically. So now you can be like, okay, well, I don't have to, so therefore I can do it this way. Now, this outcome might happen as a result, but then also because I'm a man and I have creative power, I can do this, or this. And therefore, you start to make your own way in the world as opposed to, I have to go to work. I have to take the bins out. I have to do this. I have to go to my kids' storytelling play at school. You don't have to. You don't have to do any of those things. So when you can remove have to, then you can get into, well, I choose to. And then you can move into a better story, which is, I'm blessed to be able to do this, even if it's going to work or doing a chore that you don't like, because the way that you do something matters way more than the action itself.
That's right.
So I'm blessed to go to work. I'm blessed to be able to go to my kids' play. I'm blessed to, be able to have a sanitary home by taking the bins out at 6 a.m. on a Monday. It's like I get to do that, not I have to do that. Even just that will change so many things. But at the end of the day, Matt, to answer your question, removing have to will really open up a lot of doors for
Yeah.
yourself in life.
Yeah. It changes the prison that's right here, self-imposed, right? It changes that very thing. The words matter. Do you do that? I imagine you've done this long enough now where you will have that conscious decision. I'm curious, did you start out having to write that to start to shift your language, to be intentional about it? Like, was writing a piece of that, or was it you just catching yourself and intentionally changing the language, whether it was what you're speaking or speaking internally? How did you shift that language for yourself?
For me personally, it was just an internal thing. But if I noticed it was a pattern that kept recurring and I had to keep catching myself, it
Yeah.
meant I was catching it too late and I was allowing the patterns to continue. So then I would actually write it down and I would write my own story. I'd be reauthoring, which we call it. So I'd be like, all right, I am, and then I would just rewrite the story. I would
Yeah.
even allow myself to write it in the negative sense, how it was running out. I'm like, because it's okay to do that. Some people think, oh, don't write anything negative. It's like, no, you're stronger than that. You can write it. So I would go, okay, this is what's actually in me, and I would free flow it and be like, yeah, I actually feel this. I feel I have to do this. I feel disempowered by this, and this sucks, and they suck, and all the things that I was just let it come out. Then I'd read it and I go, it's really interesting that that's my internal dialogue. Like even without thinking of it unconsciously, that's running through me all the time. So I'm glad I
Yeah.
can see it now. Then I would do some kind of ritual with it. I might burn it. I might whatever with that. Then I'll rewrite it, and I read it multiple times a day. So I'm like, all right, if I need to repattern this, I'm gonna have to
Right.
work at it like a new skill. Like you don't just think of a new skill and oh, I've been using a chisel and I'm doing it like oh that's wrong. I'll just think of
Yeah.
it and now next time I'll make a beautiful table. It's like it doesn't work like that. You got to repattern that multiple times. So you also have to repattern your own internal story multiple times to the point where it's just become second nature now. Like you've rewritten that program. No, you don't have to keep writing it after that, but you can always refer to it. And but I really feel that we want to keep progressing that because whatever my story is now, it's different from what it was 6 months ago. So and that's different from 6 months ago before that. So I know that I don't never like get there and I've never like made it. So whatever I have now, it's good, it's better than it was. But like we were talking about before, I'm always looking to and feeling into who I really am and who I'm becoming because it's really a lifelong journey. So I know that my story will continue to evolve.
Such a powerful concept, man. It is the concept that if I can impart that one thing, on all the families we get to work with. I don't know that I could impart anything better. The ability to look at any situation, look at any scenario, look at any concept, to deconstruct it, to look at all sides, and to actively choose what you want the story to be around that. To me is I don't I'd be hard pressed to find something more powerful. Breaking it down extraordinarily well. Is there something you're working on for you right now, like reconstructing right now? Any particular stories for you?
Yeah. Yeah. My familial story. So we all come from a different ancestry and blueprint, and it actually has a lot to do with who we are
Yeah.
and what we're here to do. So what I've noticed is that a lot of people will continue to play out their familial blueprint or their ancestral blueprint. And
Yeah.
there's, without getting too like out there with it, but there's curses wrapped up in that. There's wealth wrapped up in that too, but there's just patterns that have always held people back. And it can actually show up as diseases. Like we talk about genetic diseases and that. It's more to do with an ancestral blueprint. So like my father and my father's father and his father all had a heart attack at like 60. So therefore I'm probably going to have a heart attack at 60. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that's not true. But there's probably something that's affecting the energetics of the heart, some kind of heartbreak, some kind of residual anger and hurt and grief that's stored in whatever happened in our lineage, which passes through. And at some point, it's a really, first of all, it's not an, it's a very you could call it somewhat of a, you don't want to like put negative spins on it, but it's quite a burden, I think, for people to carry.
Yeah.
But it's also therefore it's a real gift. Like it's a real honor to be the one that stops that thing going through your familial line. By the way, it doesn't happen in a linear fashion. So if you have kids and even one or two grandkids, if you decide to handle that now, it goes forwards and backwards. You haven't like screwed anything up in your like, oh shit, I passed that to my grandkids. Like I feel shame as a man for doing that. That's not how it works. So whatever we decide to heal now works forward, back, present. And because in my I'll just quickly speak about this because in my profession as a holistic health practitioner, I did deal with a lot of people's health conditions, including my own. And it's funny because a lot of these patterns would show up over and over and over. And people think like, oh, I just have this problem with my skin or my gut or pain here or whatever. And so many people would go, I've done this, I've gone on this protocol, I've gone to these doctors, I've done these tests. And it's like they've all done the things they're supposed to do. They should be better. They've changed their diet, they're exercising, they've taken these supplements that work for everybody else on YouTube, or this doctor says, and it's like, but they're still the same. It's because it's more than just that. And one of the biggest examples that people relate to is people who are overweight. Fat's very protective. So fat doesn't just protect against physical. So if you have heavy metals in the body or anything that is highly toxic to the body, body's really intelligent, so it'll shuttle those damaging call it toxins or chemicals, however you want to think of that, away from glands and organs, which would be very detrimental to the damage, and it puts it into fat tissue, which it won't damage, and then it stores it there so it won't be released to damage glands and organs and nerve tissue and things like that. So fat's actually also protective from a metaphysical sense. So it's really common for women who have gone through sexual assault to then become large. And it doesn't matter how much they could go to the gym 3 hours a day. Like it's a really common story. Women go and beat themselves up on treadmills and that they're still 200 pounds or whatever. And it's because they're protecting themselves from an invisible predator that's there 24/7. They actually unconsciously want to appear not attractive to a predator. So to protect themselves, they have body weight on it. It's not even a physical thing. It's a metaphysical, meaning it's a non-physical thing. So when you start to see that play out in pain, health conditions, skin conditions, gut conditions, rashes, like all of that, and it's got nothing to do with what people are eating, drinking, or taking from a supplement or a medicine perspective. It's all the unseen. It's all the energetic side of things, and a lot of that's an ancestral line. So uh, why that's important is that one of the biggest stories I'm rewriting is I have a lot of heavy stuff in my family lineage.
Yeah.
And so it's my role, part of my big role in my life is to be the end of that so that
Yeah.
it doesn't pass on. And it's a big burden. It's quite heavy going, but it's also extraordinary. It's an honor to be bestowed with that, to be the one who my father and my father's father weren't the men to take on that kind of responsibility in this lifetime. So it's
Right.
very humbling also as a result. And so just to give a contextualize that, some health conditions that I had that were very painful have lifted as a result. I haven't succeeded yet, but there's certain things that I've able to alchemize in my role in my life here in my lifetime that means I don't have that pain anymore that was with me for a long time. So that actually goes back down that lineage to help clean that up. And when I have, my legacy of a family and grandkids and that too, um, God willing, then that's not part of that lineage. We've rewritten that, and we can actually start writing our own legacy now, which
Yeah,
doesn't just come with the baggage of the past.
that's right, man. Like, it reminds me, what was breaking the habit of being yourself. I think a little bit of Joe Dispenza in there. There's a little bit of that reminds me in there. But yeah, that what you said, that legacy piece and some of that genetic stuff and the legacy in action, which I've heard you talk about before too. Yeah, God, so much good stuff there. I'm gonna get a couple of these guys in here, Mr. Mraz.
Hey, Tom, thanks for joining us. It's interesting. I think you wrote part of the men's program for Matt here.
Right, like some of the if this stuff doesn't sound familiar,
Yeah, a little bit.
you guys aren't paying.
Yeah, I was curious though. You mentioned multiple times you talked about the true path and following the truth path. How did you or how do you coach other people to know when they're on their true path versus just kind of trying things out and like feeling when they're comfortable, confident, and ready to go that way?
Yeah, that's a great question, Adam. So, as a just generic answer to that, as men, we're in our heads a lot. It's actually quite easy for a man to be in his heart. A lot of people think women are in their hearts all the time. They're mostly in their head, fundamentally because they're not innately safe in this world. Whereas as men, we're much more safe in this world. Women actually find a lot of their safety and security around their social dynamic, their status, and especially the men that they're around. Whereas as men, we're actually inherently more safe, which allows us to be in our heart more easily. But because of the way that we're geared and we're made, it's real easy for us to be in our minds because we like to think things through. We like to be logical. We like step-by-step processes. We like to be able to break things down. And we also have a very linear kind of a tunnel vision, which allows us to build things and get things done. So it's a great strength. But the mind's a big trap as well because we can convince ourselves of pretty much anything, and you'll see that a lot in society. A lot of people think they're experts in a lot of different fields. They really don't know anything about, but they've convinced themselves, and so other people find that easy to follow. There's a lot of ways that the mind will play a lot of tricks. So we could convince ourselves that anything is a particular right way. So the way you kind of hinted at it, Adam, which is it's more of a feeling. And how do you trust that feeling? You've just got to go for it. You've got to be willing to make mistakes and fail forward and be like, well, I really felt that that was the right thing to do. Totally balls that up. And just be like, you know what? So why though? Like, what were the telltale signs? What was I feeling? Where did I feel it? How strong was that feeling? Because sometimes, like, really big feelings, like, oh, wow, this feels like when you meet a certain woman, you could be like, that might feel like, oh, she's a soulmate. I've known her for a day. I'm definitely going to marry her. But that's just like, those aren't the right feelings. The right feelings are more subtle. They're not just overt, huge things. In general, sometimes you'll get the tingles and that, and you'll be like, no, this is the right way to go. But there's also like, there's a grounded, measured feeling to it as well. You might feel a lot, but there's still like a lasered kind of like, no, 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 this is the right thing to do. It's not you jumping out of your skin kind of a feeling. So it's learning how to trust your feeling. And as men, I think it's a big part of our journey, still a big part of mine to get from the head into being able to trust the heart. Because the strongest warriors of our time have always had a strong balance between head and heart. Those that are ruled by their head are not really trustworthy men, and those that are all just, you know, the what I don't know how you even describe that, like just all like love and light kind of people, a little bit misguided as well. So it's that good balance between the two. I think when you can strike that good balance, that's when like you'll be able to read the signs right. Um, to get to that point though, I think like we were talking about having some exercises where you're actually trying to figure out how your programs work and where they've come from. So you might even be writing things down like we were discussing before, or even having conversations with people, just introspective time to yourself where you're meditating or something that you're doing, you get to know yourself time where you've just got this voice. You're like, you know what, like that doesn't feel like me. And you're like, that's my dad. Or that was my teacher who just like, I felt such shame and he just kept doing this. And that's that coming out, you know? So you start to realize and start to push away the things that weren't you. So you start, it's like you're carving away a statue. You're removing the parts that aren't you to get to the parts that really are you. And just by going through those sorts of exercises, you can definitely start to feel more into the lines of this is my path. Because, like, honestly, I think a lot of guys have felt that at a young age, but then because we're not fully confident in ourselves and we didn't have the mentorship around us to support us to go, you know what, that's the right thing. Like, stay strong with that. Don't lose that. And constant reminders, like how Customato used to talk to Mike Tyson like, you're the champion, you're the champion, you're the best, you can be the best, you're the best in the world. No one can be like that kind of thing day in, day out in your ear really helps to reinforce that story. And a lot of us didn't have that growing up. Like we kind of knew as we came in, you're like, I'm this, like I really feel this, even as a kid. But then you're like, that's not it. You get shamed, you get laughed at, you get belted, you get whatever, not just through your home, but through school, through society in general, the TV telling you this, like pop culture telling you that. And it's really easy, especially if you're not mature enough, which we're not as kids, we're not protected. It's easy to lose it. So then later in life, it's kind of like, well, who am I? You start to get to the point where you're like, no, no, screw that. Like something's wrong. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to start doing the inner work to be able to chip away the stuff that was just put onto us that's not us, and we can start finding the parts that really are. Which I know that's a real long answer, Adam, but at the end of the day, it's like you just got to get still enough within yourself to just ask and be willing to listen. And if you can't hear it, just gets more still. Just keep asking, like ask and you shall receive. Like, but you just got to be willing to listen.
Yeah,
And
I think you wrote that for Matt too, because we like
I didn't write anything for Matt.
Yeah, well, one of our daily 11s is journaling every day, and something that's helped me over the last year has been journaling whenever I get angry or frustrated about things, and journaling why am I angry? Why am I frustrated? Where's that coming from? That's weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, to dig away at that.
One of the things
how
you go
ahead, Matt.
No, after you.
I was just going to ask you, Matt, how on your journey are you finding that you're getting closer to, like, when do you have a knowing that you're like, this is programmed, but this is more me, this is more real me?
Yeah. Are you asking me?
No, oh, both of you. I was actually asking Adam, but you, Matt, as well.
Adam, go for it. Mine.
Well, so for me, I'm a much more calm than I was a year ago, from chiseling away at that. And I started first meditating every morning, and then I got a lot more into religion, and it turned into praying. And I feel like I get pushed certain directions, right? Like this is the direction I should be going right now. I don't know where it comes from. Like you said, it doesn't really feel like it's me, but it's not. I don't necessarily feel like, oh, that came from my dad, or that came. It feels like it's from outside of me, but I've kind of stripped away the anger and the frustration that goes along with it, and it's given me a lot more clarity. So it wasn't. Yeah, I was curious on your thoughts on that, though.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that, man. And that, and I'll speak to kind of bringing both of these together too. A lot of writings where the journaling came from is understanding that writing to understand what I actually thought mattered, right? There was a lot of things that I thought, and there was a lot of chaos going on. But then when I would strip it down and actually write it out, I could start to see a little more objectively, okay, this is what I think. And I could start to go, okay, is this something I think because I've always thought this way, or did somebody or something or some scenario put that thought into my head and now I've adopted it? And does that serve me? Do I want that? Do I feel like that is inherently true? And one of the tools that we started using, and Adam, you're going to see Amy, and I know you're in the same spot as far as like along the path here. We're going to put into month 12 what we call the spark, and some of you guys here too have done that. And really what that forces you to do, it's a tool that's been created that forces you to explain a scenario, a thought, a concept, an idea, something that is bothering you, something's bugging you, whatever, you're explaining it, but it forces you through a thought exercise of looking at all different variations of it, including the complete opposite, and having to prove all of it. So at the end of the day, you've got to go, okay, cool. I have as much as I can flesh out every potential like view of this thing. And now I'm going to go ahead and actually make a choice of which one I want. What do I want to adopt? How do I want to look at this? And it's one of the best critical thinking tools I've seen. And this is why doing this inner work is so. This is why most people don't do it. It is hard. It does take time. And I love what Tom said. I think it does take a lot of reps over and over again before it becomes something you can do relatively quickly, and you can trust yourself at that point because you've done it wrong enough. It's some of my favorite stuff, man. Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, it's very big. It's very big. It's a huge thing. And I think what came up then that was really important is that when you've questioned things enough and you're willing to look at it, the first thing is that when we're programmed, we have a lot of reactivity. So when we're presented with something in the world, we don't actually respond from who and what we truly are. And more to the point, something that's stronger than us, which is life or creator or God or whatever you perceive that to be. Like that's a huge strength. In the middle between that and the offer that we've received is what you might call like Satan or the deceiver, which is just something to take us away from who we are and ourselves. So the way that we can learn to actually not do that is realize, like we were talking about, we don't have to do anything, including respond right now.
Yeah.
That can take away reactivity. And I learned this through dealing a lot with police and courts, which is another topic that I talk to people about, like how to handle yourself in the world in that respect. There's nothing that states, even in the legal system, that you have to respond or reply in a certain period of time, which is why it's very important sometimes to just not blab straight away, to be measured in your response so that you're not reacting, you're not incriminating yourself. So in that way, even with the world, instead of being reactive, and a lot of us can be reactive to women, especially if we were treated a certain way when we're younger, or we're reactive to political narratives in the world, we just straight up, oh, like that's not right, or we just react to it. We don't have to. So by asking, like you said, Matt, like, is this right? How is that right? What if this happened? And like, could I be wrong? You're almost trying to disprove yourself, like a true scientific method, not the science that is in society today. It's like you've got a theory, you're trying to prove it, but then you're trying to disprove it.
Right.
Like how truth will be self-evident. It will stand on its own. It doesn't need you to explain or defend it. So then by doing that, what you're doing is you're actually creating almost like a portal to step through, which is now an ease of life into nothing to explain, nothing to defend. In natural law terms, what we describe it as, we have a standing. In the legal system, you have a standing, but you give your standing away if you're belligerent or you commit a crime. Your standing is below that of the act, below that of the government, which means you can be penalized for that monetarily or put in jail because you have a low standing. But as you raise your standing in life, you don't answer to certain things because you have morality. So you don't need this act down here that governs people who rape and steal, because you're like, that's not even part of, I have
Yeah.
morality like that. So you have a standing above that. But if you're, committing crimes and whatever against other people, you have a standing below that, which means you're ruled or governed, which means controlled by that.
That's
So
right.
then our standing in life is also from our inner authority, which is like, our reactivity to things. We come from anger, which means we're not clear. So once we're able to look at things and question it, and like you said, Matt, do the inner work and the reps, which can be quite a few to actually get it to work for you, then you remove a lot of the stuff that's binding you, and you actually very easily just move through it. Like your standing raises in relation to it, which means you don't have to handle that sort of stuff anymore. People aren't bothering you with the same sorts of things because you're not reacting to it. You act because of who you are. You have a standing, you have an energy, you have a goal, a mission in life, a legacy. So you're moving inexorably towards that. It's like being drawn towards it. Anything else is just distraction. Whereas if you don't have that, you're not building that, it's way too easy to just fall back onto your programs and just react to almost everything, which is inherently super draining. Like that's a real big drain of energy for people. And it's why people feel they don't have enough energy in general. They can't get much done. Life's too hard. There's too many blockages. You start seeing enemies outside of you because, oh, it's too hard. But as you start to take more responsibility and start to move more towards who you really are, it's not even there in the first place to have to react to. So
Yeah.
big part.
It's a great fundamental psychological framework that you can scaffold out. I really, that's so clear. So Amy, and speaking of, you said, oh my gosh, I just met this girl and I'm gonna marry her right away. That's actually how Amy and his wife got together. It was one day, and then no, it's not true. What's up, buddy?
Thanks, guys. Tom, sir, thanks for being with us tonight. A lot of what you're saying really resonates with me, and I really appreciate it, sir. And I'm all about the holistic health these days. But had a question on the topic you're talking about. Who am I becoming, or be the main character in your life. That's one of the things I'm trying to figure out for myself right now. And the aspect of you mentioned something about like being able to how you handle adversity, whether it's with fear, with confidence, etc. And I'm finding myself more confident these days. I don't know if it's due to age or experience, but in how I respond to others isn't the way I want it to be. And it's not necessarily hateful, but like you said, like you don't want to mock others, you don't want to like create a negative pushback to when others give you questions about who you are and what you're becoming or what you're trying to do that's like different and out there. So I have confidence in myself, but where I guess my question is, how did you learn that skill to be more empathetic and kind in like responding to others, or what tricks do you use or tools do you have to be able to do that? Because part of, I don't know, age, experience, I really just I don't care anymore. Like I don't care when people are shocked or distraught or disagree, etc. And I don't belittle. I just don't care, right? And I'm confident and I can move forward. But it can come off, aggressive. It can come off unkind, and I want to be a better version of that. So over to you, sir.
All right. First of all, thank you for that. It's a big step for a lot of people. I actually want to mention quickly though, some people do meet the love of their life and instantly know it, and they have a great marriage forever. When I said that before, it's more like that. That's more of a knowing rather than something else. It's definitely out there. It's definitely possible.
Yeah,
But what you're kind of describing under what you're asking is as we move away from like what we started with in this call, we're talking about moving away from the illusory safety and security of the collective. So that's called the tribal mind. And when we're in the tribal mind, we're safe because the tribal mind has these ways of doing things, these right and wrongs, these taboos. And as long as we avoid those and we stick with these, we're safe. But as soon as we start to question the tribal mind, we can start to then have that turn on us. And now we're a threat to it. So therefore, we're under threat. And what happens is when we start to behave or become something different from what we were and how the outside world perceives us, that's a threat. Because let's say you start to eat really well. Now everyone else feels bad about themselves, not because you're telling them that they're wrong, not because you're becoming not that anymore. So they kind of want, oh, what are you doing? What are you eating? Oh, you freak food. You like, what do they start to try to mock you. Well, not everyone. Some people are very supportive, but I just mean like probably relate to that in different analogies. But you could be mocked, you could be ostracized, criticized, because you're starting to threaten them. So what happens is as we remove ourselves from the safety, if we haven't found it for ourselves yet, we can feel threatened. And that's when we'll respond with anger. And that's when we'll criticize. That's when we'll put people down. That's where we don't have kindness and compassion. Why would we? We're under threat. Well, that's how the mind works.
Yeah.
So as you get older, like you said, you just generally don't care. Like you see old guys, like old guys, they just don't care. They'll say whatever, they'll do whatever. They're past caring, right? And there's a great value in that. But if you're like in your early 20s, you still have a kind of a need to fit in. There's a social status you want to maintain or uphold or whatever. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. So the question is this: first of all, am I picking my battles? Is this the right time and place to assert who I am? Because in a lot of cases, it's just smoke and mirrors. It's just people that themselves are disempowered. They're feeling threatened by your very existence just because you don't prescribe to their belief systems or you're living outside of the prescribed societal or tribal mind. And that's a threat to them, right? So it doesn't have to be. And the way you respond to their reactivity will mean everything. So they could just be like, rah, 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 rah. You could just go, yeah, like, yeah, maybe, maybe not. So, for example, if you get pulled over by a police officer and they say you were speeding, You don't want to say, yes, I was, you'll incriminate yourself. You don't want to say, no, I wasn't, because you're making a claim which you have to provide evidence for, which you can't. You just say, I highly doubt that. What else could I help you with? Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. You want to give non-claim answers, not yes, not no, something in the middle. And that's how you can defuse a situation and not incriminate yourself, which is kind of what people are offering or society's offering to you if they're trying to, question what you're doing because you're moving away from the societal norm. You could even let people talk themselves out. They're like, well, I reckon this, and I reckon, we should all be like lesbians and live on the moon, and men aren't, everyone's whatever. You just go, you know what? I've never thought of it that way. That's a really interesting way to look at it. You're not agreeing with them, you're not disagreeing with them, you're not putting them down. So you don't want to like it's really important when we're talking about morality not to support like narratives that are just plain wrong or immoral. So you don't want to go,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, of course, I agree.
Yeah.
Like that's not the right thing to do, but you can move it away from that by just going, you know what, never thought of it that way. It's a really interesting way to look at it. I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts on that in a month's time. Let me know how that's going as well. You're not supporting it, but you're also not tearing it down, and that allows people to come to things on their own, on their own steam. Or even now, the threat's gone, so now they might be going, "Well, what do you think about it?"
Mm.
And you can tell in the way somebody asks whether they're asking a question that's like, "What do you think about it?" Which is kind of like they're trying to goad you into a battle, but it might be genuine. In which case, hey, you just got to learn to pick your battles. That's the fundamental answer to this: is learn to pick your battles. Is this a real scenario that I need to pour myself into? Is this a potential threat, or does it just seem like a threat? Like so many people thought that the 2020 to 2023 was a massive threat, and it wasn't. If you knew who you were and what you were doing, other people just went nuts because it was an illusion, and they reacted out of disillusionment and fear and not knowing how to pick their battles, and they ended up in a something not positive might have happened. So learn to pick your battles.
Good to go. Thank you, sir. I definitely picked that battle, by the way. And just so you know, Matt, when I met my wife, I knew
Yeah.
that I loved her then. And I waited all of college to go by before I was like, I messed up. I need to go back and get this woman. She felt the same way. We've been married 18 years. I want to point out that that's longer than you. So of the few things that
Yes,
we
it
compete
is. Yes,
against,
it
I got
is.
you there.
Yes, it is. Yes, you do, sir. Yeah, we just did 17. So we've been together 20, but you guys might have had me beat on that too. So yeah, that's awesome, man. No, that's so solid. Yeah, that was
Thanks,
really
Tom.
great. It's a really great question, and it's something that, and I love Tom's answer on that, and that's something that I definitely made a lot of mistakes around too. The confidence piece and earning that, and initially it can become almost brittle, and it's like a pride that gets disguised as sovereignty. At least it was for me in certain areas, and so remembering that as a tool to be wielded. And I love what Tom was talking about right there, including the space lesbians. But I love what he was talking about. I love what he was talking about with looking at somebody and going, man, I understand that you feel that way, and I just don't share the same perspective. And there's no hostility, and there's no superiority, and that's some mastery. And you can reject that conformity without rejecting the person. So I like the way he framed that right there. Yeah, it was good.
Awesome. Did that answer your question, Aim?
Yes, sir. It did. Yeah, I'm picking my battles. I'm prioritizing. My only problem is, I'm prone to battle. So I'll entertain the conversations and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
It's
just
just
need to
about,
not
you know
do that
what?
all the time.
There's nothing wrong with that because a lot of us do have a warrior archetype that we're born with, and I think modern society has just gotten so weak that it's almost like it's gotten to the point where you almost don't even need it to function as a man in society. But it's really important not to lose it and not to become all in the head and just like, no, this is a you just intellectualize everything. Like, I don't need to argue. Arguments go nowhere, blah, blah, blah. But you're not really, feeling your way into life. And I think being combative has its place, absolutely. And if something is outright wrong, I think it's really important to call it out. I think, Matt, what you brought up though is there's a really important kind of concept, which is to attack the narrative, but not the character. And
Mhm.
and when you can separate those two things, you can get a lot more done. But when somebody is really out of line and they're personally that's picking your battles. If it is a personal threat or something, you do have to, your
Yeah.
warrior archetype's there for a reason. But same, you can still exercise it against a narrative, but not the character.
Right.
So if you can discern those, you can still like,
Yeah.
you can be
Yeah.
righteously angry,
100%. I think there's a lot of nuance to it, and the confidence itself comes from serving a mission and protecting and building and guiding. Then there's a nobility in that too, and I don't think everybody, not everybody, certainly not every argument deserves even necessarily the empathy that they're wanting to give it either. So I think there's a lot of nuance in that.
Yeah, there's also a passage that says, "Don't cast pearls before swine." Just means like you might have a lot of value and a lot of good things to say. It's just not the right place to say it or the right audience to say it to. It's just like silence can reinforce your standing, where it's just like, I don't need to speak. I don't need to address that. Like I've been insulted in so many different ways by so many different groups of people over the last 10 years of what I speak out about. And some things I just don't even respond to. Like, what's the point? Like whether it's media or chills, trolls, whatever. It's just like it's a losing battle often to address things head on when it's actually designed to pull you down to a lower level. So just don't cast pearls before swine. Learn to just stand in your standing, which actually says way more than any amount of verbal words could say in relation to that kind of claim or offer.
Yeah, agreed. Love it, man.
Thank you.
Tom, are you okay for a couple? We have a couple more hands. I want to make sure
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
okay for a
Yep.
couple. Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Sir, thank you for your time. 45 as well, so I feel you on that.
Hey, 45 Club.
Hey. You had me intrigued by a lot of what you said, but specifically when you were talking about like your family line and how you have a history of heart disease, I believe you said, in your family, or heart attack. I'm interested to learn a little bit more about like maybe like what you're doing and how you identify those things and obviously how you change those.
Yeah, okay. So I'm not sure how I said it, but it's not, I was just giving an example. That's not in my family. My family's just got a lot of heaviness in history of violence and things like that. That's which I can definitely pick in myself, where I'm very, despite what I've been just speaking about, especially in my early years, I was always quick to a fight and battle something because I just had this innate sense of that's wrong or that's not right. So I would just battle it. So how do you actually identify? It's not unless you're ready. I'll just preface this with something. There's a few different quotes that all say the same thing. Life doesn't give you something that you're not ready for, or you don't have the ability or capacity to have or hold or handle in this life. Some people do not have that ability. So that's why these kinds of lineages will go on and on and on and on and on until it gets to this one guy where it's like, look, it's just an offer. You can turn your back on it. It's no problem. It's going to continue, but you can. You don't have to, but you can. Because we can all, like the Matrix movie, it's like, I know this steak's fake, but man, ignorance is bliss. You can do that. But not everybody is given the opportunity to even know whether or not that steak's real in the first place. So if you are somebody who is here in this lifetime to have the ability to actually turn that around, you will know it in some way, shape, or form. And usually it comes in the message is usually delivered in a form of pain or loss. You might have to go through grief, a loss of something, like a big loss, something that's outside of the norm of just like an annoyance, something that's big that like kind of wakes you up, so to speak. So when you can start to notice things that what conventional advice or conventional things where like, let's say you have a headache and everyone's just like, dude, all you do is just take this and take that and just breathe this way and it's fine. And you're doing a lot of things that is just not really shifting. It's something a lot deeper. That's a sign. That's one. That's not it. That's one sign where you are making attempts to better yourself, but they're just not really getting you anywhere, despite you seeing other people around you changing by doing one simple thing. And that's why people swear by this one thing, but it doesn't work for you. That's a sign. The fact that you are just getting these feelings over and over, or you're having dreams, repeated, recurring dreams that are very specific. You don't know what they mean, but they're recurring for a reason. That's another sign. So it might be happening in the dream world. Signs that show up even through just your conversations with your family, patterns that you just keep noticing. The fact no one else notices the patterns but you do, that's another sign. There's probably 100 different ways I could rattle off that would give you an indication that this is for you to look at. Well, life's showing you those. But they're subtle. They're subtle until you just can't listen, and then they get more overt and more overt and more overt. That's when generally the cataclysmic event happens, a massive change in life, a loss of something or something along those lines, a big hardship to really snap you out because you weren't listening to the subtle stuff. So does that kind of, before I go to the next part of the question, does that kind of give you an idea of how you might pick up on it?
Yeah, no, and kind of going back to what Adam said, and then what Matt was saying, that what you guys are saying about a lot of the things, a lot of the habits that we have in the program, and a lot of the structure of the Apogee Men program, kind of, I'm not good with my words, but kind of force you into those situations. Like kind of force you to confront some of those things, or at least consider some of those things. So in a good way, not in a weird, like hazy kind of way, or anything like that. In a very good way, in my opinion. So yeah,
Yep.
I connect with that.
Forcing, yeah, well, you said forcing, and I would agree that's sometimes part of it. Some people find themselves in group like this and they're not even really sure why. They just had like a feeling like, oh, I should probably do this group. It wasn't anything forced or overt. That's also a sign. That's the subtle things. You just kind of like following a feeling or whatever that you think you should. Like, I should look at this. So as far as how to what to do about it, that's a whole other story. So if a guy was to realize that his father and father's father, etc., all had heart disease and died at a certain age, it's like, all right, well, here's a pattern and I've got to look into why. It's not real hard to start breaking things down after that. Like that's when you start to deep dive into maybe even the heart. What is the heart? How does it function? Why do we have it? If it's not just a physical thing, what else affects the heart? Like then you look at the emotions that affect the heart, the emotions that store in the heart, the emotions that affect its ability to perform its physiological function. Then you look at habits like alcoholism or whatever. Like that's very obvious. It's not going to take much to actually break down how and why. And then it's a real simple just decision where you choose. So the word decide means to cut or sever. So if you make a decision, you are actually cutting off two different possibilities where that one is off the table and this one's on the table. It's to decide. So you are, by making a decision and a choice, which is your God-given right to make choices in this life. Like, I'm not going to continue with that. Like they're just using alcoholism. That's a real obvious thing. Now, if somebody's under the grip of a demon of alcoholism, it's not just necessarily as easy as just going, oh, okay, well, I just won't drink anymore. You might have to do some real work and go through a lot of pain to separate yourself from that demon that was holding you into that habit. But at the end of the day, you know what it is and you know what you got to do. So to decide, to sever, to move away, you are cutting that part of that ancestral line that was kind of cursing, to use a generic term, through the lineage, and now you've cut it. So it can be as simple as that. As far as the hard work to get it done, that's another story, but it is as simple as a decision and just cutting that off from now on.
Yeah, I that's kind of cool that you said, decision is cutting that off, because there have been things in my life that, like that would be the best way that I could describe it is, sort of making that decision, kind of severing that. And, for the most part, it's relatively easy.
There's the standard, and then there's the work.
Yeah.
The work's got a blade.
Yeah.
For a reason. All right, Eric, fitting that Eric, you'll get the last one, sir.
Well, that's great. That's great. Thank you. And Tom, it's just great to have you here. So thank you for your time and for the engagement. And you truly are one of the, not to blow you up a lot, but one of the great men that I've run into in my life. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you. I love this exploration of the times that I've heard you speak about the offer, right? It can be something as simple as, and I'll use your lesbians on the moon or speeding example. Those are funny, but they're just small little things. And my question is like, when it comes to like much more serious relationship based sort of decisions or offers that are coming to you all the way into the whole legal realm of our societies, where is that place where we can step back and just sit in it, listen, absorb, and is the offer as simple as not responding and just saying, I hear what you're saying, or some version of that, and I'll consider that. And then not when you make I guess my point is when you make a position on something, that's accepting the offer, whether you like it or you don't like it. Is that accurate in the context of offer? And then, say speeding ticket or trespassing, if it's on me or on someone else. Is it the acceptance of that makes it a contract and offer accepted versus not accepted?
All right, that's a really big one. So just to pick on a couple of things, when you said like, is that acceptance of the offer if you're not agreeing with it? It's not. So I'll come back to the question. I'll just give you a brief like overview of it, and then we'll handle that more directly. So when we have an offer, we don't have to always respond to every offer. If we did, we'd just be on the back foot our entire time throughout our life, right? So the way we learn to know what to handle and what not to handle is that we have to get to know our standing. That's the whole process of getting to know who we are. So for those that aren't familiar with this, I'll break it down really simply. We have God or creator, and the creator creates man. Throughout any religious or spiritual text in history, no matter where it comes from, it all says the same thing. God creates man. So then man, in his infinite wisdom, doesn't want to do that anymore and creates government, which we're not meant to do. Govern means control, meant means mind. So it's the way to control the minds of other men. Men also meaning women. Then below government, we have entities. And entities are what are created when the government, and whatever you want to call it, creates birth certificates, creates names, creates trusts, and all that sort of stuff, which you don't need to know too much about to answer this question. But anything that's addressed to you, to your name, that's your straw man or your corporate fiction, which means it's not the living being, the living man that you are. It's the name, and the name is a corporate entity, which means it's just a piece of paper. Now, that's what a piece of paper is incorporated, which means it's a corporation or a corporate fiction. And every rule in society comes under an act. So it might be the Biosecurity Act, the Police Powers Act, the Drug Act or whatever, the Tax Act. That's what the quote unquote government, the control matrix, it's all run by acts. And acts, by the definition of an act, regulates corporations. So that's how businesses are meant to perform, and how equity is managed, where it's fair and it's right and it's just, and good business practices can occur. So acts regulate corporations, and the big trick that occurred was taking living men and women and making them act in the capacity of their name or their corporate fiction. So they are regulated by acts because they are acting in the capacity of, creating joinder to, and agreeing that they are a name or a corporate fiction. So if that's unfamiliar to anybody, don't worry so much about that. That's something you can look into if you want. What it's highlighting is we have a standing when we agree to being something like that underneath acts, which is underneath government, which is underneath everything else. Our true standing is underneath the creator, which is above. So God, man, government, acts, like entities. We, in our natural state and capacity, are way above all of those things. So let's say we're getting attacked in the street by attacked, I mean like bothered in the street by a police officer. The police officer's like, look, I think you've done this, or I need your name and address, or whatever. And you know you've done nothing wrong. You know that they're just trying to, I don't know, revenue raise or meet their quota, or just they're a bully and they feel like messing with you because they feel like they can pick on you and you're giving off that energy for whatever reason, but you snap back in line, you're like, wait, no. So listen, I don't answer questions unless I'm being investigated for a criminal offense. I'm going to walk off right now. I'm on my way. Thanks very much. And when you hold your position well and you maintain your standing well, there's nothing they can do legally, lawfully, as a man against another man or anything. But if you start acting weird, or if you have in fact done something wrong, well, you inherently, because of a lack of morality, will have a standing below that. You'll have to try to meet it a certain way. Now, if you're above a standing of that because you're, what we've been talking about, you're on path, you're authoring your own story, you're living under morality anyway, innately, naturally, you're working towards a legacy, you're never going to be bothered by something like that. So if somebody like that tries to bother you because they're below you and they're trying to like get something, it's real easy to handle. It's like, listen, I don't answer questions, not talking to you, see you later. And that's the end of the interaction. If that was an Antifa activist trying to tell you that, oh, beards are a fascist and you should shave it off and everything, you just go, okay. And you just keep walking. You would never even engage with that because it's below your standing. You don't have to even engage with that. So that's just a broad perspective of standing in relation to offers. Like that kind of offer is just like, what? I shouldn't even be in the same zip code as that. So no, I don't need to respond to it in any way. I don't need to give it any power. But if you are conducting your business and then the tax office comes after you for whatever reason, even if it's not legit, you will have to meet that because there might have to be there's an offer there that you've done something wrong or that you're going to be under investigation or you owe back taxes or whatever, even if you're doing everything right and lawfully, even if that means minimizing taxes. And you might need to just assert your standing and then it'll balance things out. But you will generally have to meet that because if you just remain silent on it and let it go because you think that you don't have to, it'll bite you. So now that I've given that kind of story format, this is how it works. When we have an offer come through, there are three main ways that we can handle that. We can say yes to it, which is a full acceptance. We can say no to that, which is like rejecting that, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to handle it. And then there's a conditional acceptance, which means saying yes on the conditions of. So, for example, I need you to provide me with all of this documentation. And you're like, geez, that's going to be a week's worth of work. You can go, look, happy to do that, which means you're not refusing, on the conditions that you can show me why I have to. You have evidence against me for such. You have a claim and you can back your claim up, a reason that I would need to do that. And then if I am lawfully obligated to do that, I will do that. In most cases, you won't need to do that because you've established by bringing your standing up that you don't have to do that. They're just fishing or soliciting, which is actually can work against them. Okay. So that's how it works with offers. We don't want to remain silent because if you receive a notice in the mail and then a second notice and then a third notice and you remain silent, it's actually taken as your agreement because if you have nothing to say or you don't have a standing in relation to that to just squash it and make it non-relevant, it's assumed that you have nothing to say. Therefore, this offer stands because you have nothing to say in return. So being silent against an Antifa activist is fine because they don't have a standing. But if there's something that's calling your standing into question and you don't meet it and squash it, well, it could stand as a truth because you haven't actually, you haven't rebutted the claim against you. Sort of sounds legally in ways because it does work in the legal system exactly like that, but it also just works in our daily life where there's always offers coming at us, but a lot of them are just, we need to pick our battles. They're below our standing. We don't need to handle it. If we remain silent on that offer, it doesn't matter. But we're always being tested in life. And this is the thing is that the more we go, okay, I am leveling up myself. I'm becoming more of who I really am. Life, in the way that it works, will show up to test you. So people will show up to like maybe aggravate you or you'll get more offers that you're like, oh, geez, I don't know how to handle that. Or do I need to handle that? Like it starts to make you question yourself. That means you're on the right track. So that's the other thing that offers do is they're a barometer to show us that we're on the right track, that we're growing outside of the societal mind, which we spoke about earlier. It's generally not you just exit and that's it. You're just free and easy. Like little things will come back towards you to try to draw you back down to where you were because that's where it wants you to be. And the system, if you want to call it that, wants you to be a good slave, does not want you to be a man who thinks for himself, who acts for himself, who can build things for himself that make the control mechanisms redundant. You don't have to fight them and break them down. You just have to make them redundant. So you insource, you're like, I don't need that. And I don't need you to give me conditions where I have to do this. I have to stick that in me. I have to comply with this and I have to do that just to get that benefit and privilege. Well, I innately have this right and I can do or create that for myself. So rather than tear that down, you just be who you really are. You don't need that and it can't get you anymore. So that's becoming that's what people call sovereign or self-reliant, is you just make it redundant. Whereas most people out there are always just going to rely on that sort of stuff because they can't rely on who they are or the energy that put us here because they don't know how to connect to that. So they just fall into fear or doubt or succumb to the offer and just go, okay, no, I'll accept that. I'll take that benefit or that privilege. Happens every day, all the time. And even with our inner critic as well, it doesn't have to be external. It could be that voice that just goes, no, that won't work out if you do that anyway. Or you always fail when you try that. Or, everyone else tried that and it didn't work. Like that's an inner critic. That's the offer that comes from inside of us that prevents us from moving forward, like the self-sabotage. So really important to handle those the same way as well. Not to remain silent if it's pertinent that you actually handle that. Show your standing in relation to that. So you actually, bring it back down to where it is in relation to you and who you really are. So many ways that plays out. So because of what you asked, Eric, sometimes people don't realize what they're asking. It's like, I can't give you just a real simple answer because it'll be an illusion. Like you'll just think, oh, that's the answer to that, but you could get yourself into trouble. So I kind of had to like give you a more detailed one as a story format to maybe just put it into perspective. So just if you just want to come back to that answer, that question now, and now I'll just give a real specific answer to it. Just go back over the offer, having to handle it, and then are agreements formed by silence, whatever. Just if you can answer that again, and I'll just give the direct answers to it.
So you're asking me to do that?
Yeah, just read because I can't remember the exact question. Just the exact question.
It was in the context of simple offers, whether they're just something like, hey, accept me for who I am because I'll just use something that we're going through, a young girl wants to be a young boy, kind of thing. Accept me for who I am. Well, do I accept that person for who they are? Sure, but it conflicts with my own inner, and I'm struggling with it right now, but it conflicts with my own inner alignment, right? So how do I navigate that and still have compassion for this individual who's going through this kind of strange moment in their lives? So that's an example. The speeding ticket's always a good example. Like, well, I didn't, I hear what you're saying, but that wasn't, what I experienced or whatever. And then, Tom, let me pull up my notes here. But I will have a follow-up to what you really said. What is settling in for me is that if we handle these offers in a very thoughtful way, whether as small or as large or as legal or as as intense as they can possibly get, do you find that having good practice around the offer helps you align with source and spirit well in your life? And
yeah, that's where it comes from. That's where if you've got to have that connection, because the whole life, like if you look at it in every story, every hero's journey, everything, it's always testing that. Will you remember? Will you maintain that connection, that faith, or will you give into fear and illusion and get caught in that abyss until you go around another hero's journey and figure it out again and again? And we go through constant forgetting and remembering cycles because something will test us enough that we forget and we fall into doubt and we fall into fear or disillusionment. So it always comes back to that, which is why having some form of spiritual practice is really, really important, whether it's religious or whether it's something like a ritual or whether it's prayer or meditation or even just basic day-to-day stuff, but it's done with intention, whether it's exercise or creating something or even the way you eat your food, that could be your practice. So if you have that every day, it's always something to come back to. It's really, really important. The going back then through your questions. So if it's a speeding fine, or it's a ticket, somebody's offering you a ticket, then handling this is going to open up a can of worms, but I'll just give you like what I'm about to say. Don't try to copy this because it's not the answer. But for example, if a policeman is offering you a ticket, it is an offer because what they need is they're making a claim. They're saying you were doing this amount of speed. Now, the only thing that they have to fall back on is either their estimate, their radar, or some way, shape, or form. They have to prove or have evidence for their claim. So this is a different type of question from the first question, which I'll get to next. So this is a claim is made that you're speeding. So you can't disagree to it because if you make the claim, the maxim is the claimant bears burden of proof. So you don't want to make any claims whatsoever. Don't say you weren't doing it. You're making a claim. You can't prove you weren't, but you can cast doubt on the claim itself. So you were speeding, sir. It's like, well, I highly doubt that I was speeding. Is there anything else I can help you with? You handle the claim, but you move it on. Don't just say, I doubt it, because you're just waiting for him to come back. This is starting to get into more advanced, complex communication skills, but for the purpose of this example, I highly doubt I was speeding. Anything else I can help you with today? No, I caught you speeding. They're going to come back and try it again. I caught you speeding. It's like, okay, well, do you have evidence for that claim? How do you propose that I was speeding? Because I don't believe that I was. You assert again, you don't believe you were speeding. I believe isn't yes or no, it's not a claim.
Yeah.
So then they might say, well, I caught you. And then well, how did you measure that speed? You have to get to know a little bit more about how these things work to be able to call them out on their game. For example, um, just I'll just say this because it might help people. There's always an act interpretation act. When people say I measured you speeding, the definition of measuring a speed means it must be measured in a straight line and on a horizontal plane. That's how, not speed, but distance. Distance is measured in a horizontal plane and in a straight line. Speed is a function of distance over time. So in order to measure speed, you have to measure distance. So if that measurement was taken on a corner, down or up a hill, anything that's not a horizontal plane or a straight line, it is not an accurate measurement of speed, which means that they do not have evidence for the claim. So there's ways to ask questions. You've got to get into the art of asking the right questions. So then that would move us on to the first one, which is, let's say there's the offer of, I believe, like I'm a boy, but I believe that I'm a girl, right? So then that by asking the right questions, you can help to dissolve the illusion. It's like, okay, well, how? Why? What evidence do you have for that? Like, you don't want to talk like a lawyer, but it's just trying to give the analogy of how you can ask similar questions to help the claim be removed. Like the claim doesn't stand anymore. So again, we're not attacking the character, we're attacking the claim, or we're questioning the claim. And when we can remove the character's not under threat, so they don't have to defend so hard because you get tunnel vision when you're defending, right? You're like, I got to duck and weave, like I'm defending it against an attack. So if the individual, the character doesn't feel attacked, they can be more open. So you go after the claim instead. And then you can go through a series of questions, which is what evidence is that in a legal sense? Like use different language when it's interpersonal relationships. What evidence do you have for that? How do you come about that? Why? What does that mean? How does that look? How does that make you feel? What makes you believe that, et cetera, et cetera. You don't want to get antagonistic with things, but as far as how you handle it, because that was really the first question, Eric,
Yeah.
is you just want to get to the point where you have acceptance, which means you have nothing to defend or explain. As soon as people feel you trying to defend, then they're going to also have to defend, which is not going to give there's not a chance to meet in an empathetic or a harmonious sense. Doesn't mean you agree with them at all. You never want to just, do that whole um, enabling. You don't want to enable people, but which means you have no attachment to an outcome. So the outcome will be the outcome. But if I stand in my power for who I truly am, I understand that this is an offer and I get to handle it a multitude of different ways, then that's what I'm going to do. So you're focused on the task, not the outcome. They feel you're not defending, so they don't have to defend, so you can come together a bit more easily. If there's a claim that is absolutely false and immoral, you can handle the claim rather than attacking the character that's associated with the claim. Similar to a police officer, don't go, "Oh, you pig, your mother, whatever." Like you don't name call them. You attack the claim. You want to be pretty civil towards the character, right? So same thing goes with, let's say it's a young person and they're confused like that. then offering some kind of strength that they don't have, which is if they can feel in you that you have resolution in what you know to be true, or a knowing or a standing, and let them feel into that. If they can't, there's not much more that you can do, because what happens is when you interfere too much with other people's business, it might appear like they move a certain way forward, but as soon as you let go, it's the equivalent of holding them by their hand. And as soon
Mm.
as you let go, like they'll recoil back 10 paces back from where they were. And that can be real bad. You know, I've seen a lot of suicides happen that way because guys got too involved, like with just being the answer, like getting involved, like an identity with that, and then all of a sudden they're busy with their family, or whatever, and then the guy's like, you know, it's not a healthy thing to do, but it is healthy to provide strength and support because of who you are, and something that they can lean into should they choose, but it's still their choosing. I know it's a really hard situation to be in, especially if people are young and they're trying to make these life-altering decisions, and you're like, how did that even get in there? And you feel this sense of like, I really want to help, but it's really important not to interfere too much with people's lives. But it is important to be present and strong, and be a sense of you know, like not just strength, but just certainty, and just clarity. Like
Mm.
clarity through the mud that people find themselves in, because we all get in mud occasionally, like, you know, a bit confused or whatever. That's just an extreme version of it. But the offer is not just for them, remember, it is for you. So whenever you come into a situation like that, whether you're pulled over for a traffic stop, that doesn't happen to everybody. Some people never see police in their lives. Some people see them
Mm.
all the time. It's because it's an experience. There's something in that they need to keep experiencing before they break this polarity with like authority. Once you break the polarity with authority and you are your own authority, you will very rarely ever even notice police in the world, let
Yeah.
alone go through traffic stops, right? So this a similar thing will occur is if something's close to you of that kind of a nature, there's something that you are offered by life itself is, I need to learn some kind of law or lesson in life through this. And how do I deal with this? That's your offer. It's got nothing to do with a kid going through some confusion of sexuality and gender. It's more to do with you. So when you handle that, that might break the polarity, which breaks the bind on that person that's like, I think I should be a girl or a boy, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Epic. I'll leave it there, but I really love just the last thought, and it's the notion of basically a Socratic method of seeking to understand through questions. And I know Matt's very familiar with that, and I love it too. Because that curiosity, you know, let's say it's the young person that's confused, you know, just seeking to understand, it shows compassion, it shows your strength, it shows your ability to recognize and see them as a person, right? As a whole person. And I love questions because that offers own self-reflection as well as you know, other considerations for, you know, the people that you're interacting with.
And I think the
100%.
added element that Tom laid out too of the resolution, when you can,
Mhm.
like, that's something that at least from our back, Eric, you and I have backgrounds from the educational standpoint, there was a lot of emphasis on a Socratic without any sort of resolution towards one way or the other, right? And a lot of times I think that's a good way to go. In this situation, the questioning remains the same, but your resolution, I think, resonates in a different, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
versus like, oh, maybe you're right, kind of thing. I don't know. And really taking this position of like, guess you'll find out for yourself. Like when you have that resolution of still attacking the claim, not the person, but you having the certainty that you have, and the way Tom described that, I think that's wildly helpful in this scenario.
For sure.
There's just real quick, there's two real big keys here that seem to always ring true. A lot, especially as men, we have this innate drive to fix things. And anyone with a wife will know that they often don't want anything fixed. They just want to be heard. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't need you to fix me. Just listen to what I'm saying, you know? So, especially with one of the fundamental things that is a result of the way society is engineered is to separate us from ourselves and each other. Almost everybody feels that they're not understood. And if somebody's going through that amount of confusion of like crossing genders and whatever, they generally underneath that, they just feel misunderstood. And to the degree that they're misunderstood, they will keep doing more and more extreme things in order to feel like somebody sees them and somebody understands. So rather than trying to fix them or offer solutions or like, whatever it is, it's just firstly, it's just let them know that they're understood. if somebody feels understood, they will generally feel less inclination to need to go and do something extreme like a gender reassignment, or even think that they're a different gender in the first place. Likewise, what goes along hand in hand with that is one of the biggest stresses in life is our need to be right. As soon as we feel the need to not have to be right about something, a lot of the stress around things just disappears with it.
Yep.
And there's a passage from the Tao Te Ching that says that the world is not governed through interference. And we're often, but with our need to be right, we're kind of interfering with things a lot. So just those two things alone, recognizing the need to be right is a great stressor in life. And number two, most people just feel misunderstood. And as soon as they feel like somebody understands them on some level, there's peace there. There's peace, and there's little need for anything more than that. So if you can just recognize those two principles, you can go a lot further in life. And also then what you do from that place, the action will be minimal, it'll be lasered, and it'll generally be the right action.
Yeah. And that, to me, that takes a lot of presence, you know, to kind of bring it back around to one of the first things that you said, being present in that whatever situation that you're faced with. So yeah, presence, calmness, and, you know, a good listening ear and heart is essential.
Absolutely.
Well, Eric knocks it out the park again. Always, he goes, man, I know somebody you're going to get along with quite well. And I absolutely see why. Doing some great work, truly, on all this stuff. I want to make sure we honor you. I want to be able to keep the conversation going with you too. So I'm going to reach out after this too, and I want to be able to keep chatting and make sure we can support you. This will go out digitally too, as long as you're okay with it. That is an offer of this going out podcast wise too. And if you're okay with that, I want to make sure we do the honor too of where do you want people to go to find your work? And I know Humble Kingdom, and we'll link that. Is there anywhere else you can go? Where do we want people to go to find what you're doing?
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, please share with whoever you like. That's absolutely fine. In doing that, when I'm answering questions about offers and parking, like that sort of stuff's extremely detailed. So I have a course that breaks that down. It's that I try to give a little bit of an answer to questions like that, but there's a certain amount that it's one of those things where it's kind of like, you know, using a firearm or learning a martial arts. It's like, you know, a little and it's dangerous. It's enough to get you into trouble. You know, you got to really understand how this sort of stuff works before you think that you know how to use that kind of thing. So I'll just caution against that. That's why some of it doesn't sound like but there's surely a straight answer to that. There's not to some of those things. It requires a bit of education. So I have a course.
I already know, not to interrupt. I already know though. I was thinking about what you were saying just on the speeding ticket alone, and I got a lot when I was younger. I haven't gotten many as an adult, but I did get one like a year and a half ago, and I was coming down a hill and around a corner, and I'm like, dang it. But I also know that I don't know enough, and I would have just messed something up in there. So not to interrupt, but I think you're right.
Cool. No, it's a good thing to bring up. So my website is thehumblekingdom.com. It's just growing at the moment. It's relatively new. So as it grows, there will be a blog on it, some free content as far as videos and things there as well. There'll be a platform and an app that comes out next year as well. But if you just go to thehumblekingdom.com, you can click on free resources. You'll get a couple of classes that I've done, and you'll be on the mailing list. That's how you'll stay abreast of all of that. If you want to follow me on social media, I give out a lot of free stuff on social media. YouTube is The Humble Kingdom. My personal Instagram is tombarnett.tv, and those are the best places to find me.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'll put all of that in there too. Obviously, we're going to put this inside our platform too. I want all the men to be able to take a look, brother. I love all the work that you are doing. If there is anything you can think of, you know, where we can support and anything we can do on your side, say the word. Obviously, we want to spread the word, but again, like-minded individual in so many ways. So thank you for the work you're doing, man. Truly.
You too. Thank you, everyone, for participating, and appreciate your time, everyone.
I appreciate you, brother. I'm going to chat with these guys here for just a few. I will reach out. It's almost 10 p.m. my time, so I'm going to go to bed after this. I will reach out tomorrow.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Tom.
See you. Eric.
Yes, sir.
You nailed it, man. Yeah. Solid guy.
He's a good guy.
Yeah. Solid guy. I love it, man. The concept, and I know it's late, guys, and I won't belabor the point, but the concept of that offer, him saying everything is an offer, that to me is one line that I think for a lot of guys can just dismantle victimhood completely when you start to realize that, when you start to own that. Every situation, every emotion, every opportunity, that's an offer. You can accept it, reject it, negotiate it, ignore it, but it is still your choice. And you can stop looking at life as something that happens to you. And now it's something that happens through you. So that in of itself, so powerful with that framework.
I just find it to be empowering is the word that comes up. And you're right. It gets rid of the sense of, that you don't have choice in certain situations. You have choice in every situation.
That's right.
And what you do with that information is the practice.
Right. Yep. That's exactly right. I think it's kind of funny too. So you got, I think Adam, Amy, and I think you guys are both in like month 10.
Yep.
Right. And so I'm looking at, so when he was talking about it, I'm like, ooh, part of month 10, the paperclip challenge itself is almost this living metaphor for the offer, right? And you got that single paperclip, you're literally holding the first offer. It's small, it's like meaningless, but each trade you make is another offer. Do I accept it? Do I counter it? Do I pass? And the more you trade, the more you get this like internal compass. And guys struggle with this one for a number of reasons. Ego being the largest one. But it teaches you that almost everything is are you creating an offer that's compelling enough to have somebody else take action. So I think it was, again, sort of serendipitous that he was in on this month. That's cool.
I was hoping to my question he would have just answered the key is irrational confidence.
Irrational confidence. I think he did say it, but he said it in Australian.
He said it in a much more roundabout way for sure. But what I was hearing was irrational confidence.
Irrational confidence. That's right, man. Yeah. He said it in Australian while he looked like Ethan Hawke, but bald with a beard.
He does.
He looked like Ethan Hawke with upside down head for sure. Yeah, it's good stuff, man. Thank you guys for hanging out, because I know it's late. I know you guys are East Coast, but Eric wins the late prize in England. I'm sorry, man. That worked out quite well. It was George.
I had to jump on.
Yeah, man. I knew it, but in England too, so it was like 3:00 in the morning, man. So
what's funny is the last guy I missed was English, Gareth Ike.
Gareth, yeah.
Brought to you.
That's
And
right.
I missed that one, but it wasn't my fault. I was just like, I got, I don't know, my calendar didn't line up. Now I'm here about 50 miles from him. And
Gareth. That's too funny, man. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. That was solid. Yep, really, really solid. Anything else for you? Again, I know it's late, but anything else pressing for you guys that are here? All right. Well, then we will get some sleep.
I guess my only questions matter for I'll be at your house in like 3 weeks.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you will.
Yeah, I've got a pack and play and high chair for Ellie. Anything else you can think of I need to bring?
You're golden, man. Should be good.
Cool.
Yeah, should be good. Should be good. Should be easy. We'll be coming back. We're gonna head to Rhode Island for a couple of days for a wedding. It'll be our first time leaving the farm in the 4 years that we've been here.
Wow.
As a family. So we'll go out there for a few days for a wedding, and we'll be coming back. So the day you get there, I think the day before we'll have done a 14-hour drive. So we'll be.
Yeah, we do 13 to Jersey every year for we go through the night to go to Ashley's parents have a shore house. So we go 13 hours through the night.
Yep.
Leave at 7 at night. Get there at 8 in the morning, and it works great.
Yep. So we'll be coffeeed up and excited to have you guys here, man. It'll be fun.
Awesome. We're excited.
Beautiful. All right, you guys. Sending love to all of you. Everybody have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Yeah.